Hello and welcome to this lecture, and in this lecture we will be finally creating our very first view that is nothing but the home page for our book application. So as I earlier mentioned that whatever we actually want to display out or we want the user to view, we are going to make that thing in the views.py file. So here we are going to do the exact same thing. So let's go ahead and write in some code here. So let me just maximize the font a little bit so that you will be able to see what I'm typing. Okay, so the first thing which you need to do here in the views.py file, so right now we are in this file right here, which is views.py of the books. So here what we do is that we need to actually go ahead and display something to the user. But even before doing that, let's understand what happens when the user types in some URL. So whenever a user actually types in a URL, what usually happens is that the browser sends that URL request to the web server. So what that web server actually does is that it takes up the request, and depending upon that particular request, it actually throws up or it actually gives back an HTTP response. So it's actually like you are requesting something to the web server, and the server is replying you with a response that is nothing but it is responding you with a certain output that is nothing but a web page. That's why it's actually called as a web server, because it does the job of serving us web pages. So the first thing which we need to do here is that we need to import the HTTP response from here so that we could actually respond to the request. So first thing which you need to do is that you need to type in from Django.http. You need to import the HTTP response. So you need to type in import HTTP response. So once you have this HTTP response, you need to go ahead and build up a function to basically accept the request and to basically send out an HTTP response. So we are going to name this thing as index. So let's type in def index. So we are essentially creating a function here. So if you have gone through all the Python tutorials, you already must know what a function is. And this function is going to accept a request. And what this function is going to do, it is simply going to return an HTTP response. So you need to type in return HTTP response, and this response is actually going to contain our HTML code. So right now we only have to display something like this is the book's homepage. So let me give a heading here. So you need to mention the HTML in double quotes. So here I'm going to type in H opening tag and a H closing tag. Now in this I'm going to type in this is the book's homepage. So once I have this code in here, what this is going to do is that it is actually going to accept the request, and upon accepting this request, it is going to return me this response right here, which says that this is the book's homepage. So we have successfully completed the views.py. That is nothing but what the user is going to be able to see. So this is what the user is going to get an output. But here comes the main part. What we need to do here is that after designing this, we actually need to have a urls.py file for the books. So what you need to do is that you need to go here to my site. You simply need to copy up the urls.py. You need to go back to books and you need to paste this urls.py file here, or a better way is that you could go ahead, go to books and create a new file, name it as urls.py. So when you hit enter, as you could see, the new urls.py file for the books app is going to be created right over here. So here what we are going to do is that as we have completed designing the views.py file, we are going to design the urls.py file. So what you can do is that you could go to the urls.py of my site, and to save time, you could simply copy this thing, go back to the urls.py of the books app, you could paste it over here, and you just need to remove this thing right here. So what we need to do now is that we also need to define the URL patterns for the books.py file. So the URL pattern for each and every app is actually defined in terms of a regular expression. So we have already learned about regular expressions in Python. So what we need to do here is that we need to define the URLs pattern in regular expression. So whenever you need to define a URL, you first type an R, which stands for a raw string. And after R, you need to include the URL in single quotes as shown. So let me just increase the font a little bit. And in here, what you need to do is that you need to go ahead and type in the pattern which you are looking to match up. So each URL pattern actually begins with a caret sign and it ends with a dollar sign, and in between these two signs we are going to have the URL pattern. Right now in the books.py we don't have any URL pattern, but what we want to do here is that when user actually arrives on the books URL, we want to go ahead and we actually want to display the view, which is nothing but the view for the books app, and in that we actually want to call in this function which is index. So what you could do here is that simply give a comma and type in views.index. So as you could see, when you type this thing in, you are going to have an error because you need to import the views. So to import views, you type in from dot, and dot means the current directory. So you want to import from current directory, so you specify a dot here, and you could type in import views. So that is going to resolve this issue. And after this, you again type name equals, in quotations, simply type in index. So this is simply passing up the function name over here. So the urls.py file of the books is actually ready, but what we want to do now is that we need to switch to the main urls.py file, which is the urls.py for the my site. So as you could see, right now in this we only have the URL pattern for admin, and what we want to do here is that we want to include a new URL pattern for the books. So what we are essentially trying to achieve here is that whenever the user types in the website name, gives us a slash and types in books, that means he should be redirected to the books app. So we go ahead and design the URL for the same. So you simply need to type in URL, and as I said, you need to have an R, and each URL actually starts with a caret, and here you don't need to specify a dollar because you're not essentially trying to end the URL, and here you could simply type in books slash. So this is the URL for which we are looking for a match, and right after this you need to give a comma and you need to use a function which is called as include. So this include function is going to give you an error because you need to import include as well. So you simply go here, type in include, give a comma, and it is actually going to include the include function for you. And to this include, you simply need to pass in the urls.py file of books. So here in quotations, you could type in books.urls, actually misspelled include, that should be include, and this is going to resolve your error. And once you have typed in the URL, make sure that you also give a comma at the end, or else you are going to have an error. So now let's understand what we have done exactly in this lecture. So as we want to display something on the books homepage, the first thing which we did is that we have made this function which is index, which actually is going to display this HTML on our page. Then after that, we went on to the books.urls file and we have made a pattern, that is the URL pattern for the books.urls. That is nothing but we have left it blank, and what we told Python is that whenever Python actually redirects to this, we actually want to execute the function which is index function in the views file. So if you go to views.py, this is the function which we are talking about. And finally, after making changes to the books.urls file, you need to move to the urls.py file of your main site. So this is what it actually looks like. And in here, we have also created URL pattern for books. That means whenever the user types in the website name /books into the URL, what it does, it basically includes books.urls file, and that is nothing but he is going to be redirected to this thing right here, which is in turn going to execute the index function which we have defined here in this views.py file. So this might sound a little bit confusing if you are new to Django, but eventually as you move along and practice Django a little bit, it is going to make a lot more sense. Now, once we have done everything properly, what you need to do is that you simply need to make sure that you save everything. So simply go to files, click on save all, and now you could go ahead and run your server and you could check your output. So you type in python manage.py run server. So it is going to start your server, and now you could open up your web browser and you simply need to type in your URL, which is 127.0.0.1:8000, and right now you will have an error. and what this error actually signifies is that you either need to type in this URL or this URL right here. That is, you need to include /admin or /books right over here. So if you type in /books and hit enter, as you could see, it says that this is the books homepage. And the reason for that is because whenever we type in this URL, what actually happens is that the control goes to the urls.py file of my site directory, and this actually redirects them to the books.urls file. So if you open up books.urls, as you could see, the URL states that whenever we have a particular URL like books, it is actually going to execute a function which is present in the views file, and that function is named as index. So then it is going to jump on to the views.py, it is going to take the function which is named as index, and it is actually going to return an HTTP response, which is nothing but the HTML code which we have written right over here. So that's basically how Django works. So hopefully you are able to understand how this thing actually works and how to create the home page for our Django application. So if you are a complete beginner, then you might find this thing a little bit difficult, because even I used to find this thing a lot difficult when I actually did it for the very first time. But eventually these things kind of sinked into my mind, and I was able to understand in a much more better way. And the same is going to happen with you if you pay close attention and understand what's going on here. So that's it for this lecture, and in the next lecture we are going to learn how to actually set up our database in Django. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.